And good afternoon, Port Jervis, and welcome to the Port Connects Alumni Podcast. My name is Andrew Murata, host of the podcast, and happy Port Pride Friday to our community. Whether you are watching the show here in the Northeast, or maybe I should say good morning to you if you are watching it from the Pacific Northwest. We are going to meet Dr. Stephen Ross here, class of 96. Doing a lot of great stuff out there in Seattle. Really fascinating. So it's morning time there. Stephen's joining us from the morning time. So good afternoon. Just wanted to make a couple of announcements before we bring in Dr. Ross. Number one, it's a Port Pride Friday. Enjoy the summertime. It is a beautiful day here in the Northeast. So get outside and enjoy that. Number two, we're about a month away from the opening of school. There's athletic registrations that are starting. There are information that's going to be going home, and we are going to send the bus routes. I know everyone's excited about the bus routes, but we are going to do that electronically this year. We're going to use our new Parent Square system. Instead of mailing out thousands of letters, which costs thousands of dollars and takes several days, we're going to do it electronically and make sure we get that information to you safely, quickly, and accurately. So that is coming. And lastly, get those physicals. Sports registrations are open. Take care of the physical stuff. Get all that paperwork out of the way so you can get open there. For those that are anxious and clicking on their kid's schedule and when's my kid's schedule is coming out, guidance is working on that stuff, right? And it's closed until that time. We don't want you to see all the sorting and sharing and trading and moving, all the stuff behind the scenes. We want it to be ready, so we will open up the Power School portal once that is all set, so parents and students can get in there. All right, just a couple of announcements, but let's bring in the star of the show, class of 96, coming to us from Seattle, Dr. Stephen Ross. Good morning to you, Stephen.
Yeah, good afternoon. How you doing?
Yeah, happy to be on with you. I appreciate your flexibility. I know I've been knocking on your door for some time, so appreciate making some time for us back here in Port.
No worries. Happy to be here.
Yeah, cool. Stephen, you have an incredible background with a ton of stuff to get started with, but why don't you give us a brief intro? Where are you now? What are you doing? And share a little bit about yourself right now.
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently in Seattle, Washington. This is where I live now. I've lived here since 2010. My job right now, I'm an associate professor and associate dean of faculty development and student affairs out here at the University of Washington, Tacoma. Like I said, I've been here since 2010, doing work related to psychology, right? Psychology and law. I teach classes on cognitive psychology and its intersection with law. And then I do a lot of research looking at how can we more effectively get better information from individuals, both those that want to give it to us, like witnesses to and victims of crime, and also non-compliant individuals like suspects or perpetrators, and how can we elicit better intelligence from people, and then using that to help reform and inform our criminal justice system.
Yeah. Stephen, did the job bring you out there? How did you get out there from Port Jervis?
Yeah, the job had a pretty circuitous route from Port. So left Port, went to do my undergraduate in Rhode Island, did a little bit of studying abroad in London, then kind of came back, spent a bit of time living back in New York before I went to grad school. And then from there in grad school, I traveled to Indiana first, and then Texas. From Texas, went to Miami and spent a couple years in Miami. And then after that, moved up here to the Pacific Northwest, primarily because it was the perfect job. It was written for exactly what I do and what I wanted to do. And actually, I'd promised my wife that we weren't going to live west of the Mississippi. And then we ended up moving about as far away as you could in the continental U.S.
Can't go much more west.
Can't go. That move from Miami to Seattle was a very long move. That's for sure.
Yeah, we have a board game we play. It's a railroad. That's the longest route.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's long. It's very long.
Wow. Wow. That is fascinating. Stephen, people watch TV and they watch all these Criminal Minds shows and they watch all these things, but you're actually doing that kind of work. I mean, it's literally in, investigations and people's thought process and trying to figure this stuff out. You're supporting these people with your work. Am I accurate in saying that?
Yeah, somewhat. It's kind of ironic that you mentioned Criminal Minds because, I mean, literally just this morning, I'm teaching a summer class right now. And the topic of the conversation that I was working on this morning is criminal profiling, right? And I played a clip from Criminal Minds in that to kind of just show, because that's what people think of when they think of psychology and law. They think of things like criminal profiling or things like that. I don't do that specific type of work, right? But it is work that's done in the legal system, right? And so the way I kind of think of myself is that I do a lot of work that's kind of like research and development for criminal investigations, right? Myself and our colleagues, we try to develop better skills to gather intelligence from people, right? And better techniques, and how can we go about eliciting more accurate information from people. That way we can inform the investigations more effectively, right? And so I'm not sitting there doing work of trying to identify some, like using terms from Criminal Minds, some unsub or unknown subject and trying to get into like the psychology of why are they engaging in this behavior or things of that sort. Rather, we're trying to deal with how do we interview people, how do we test their memory? How do we gather more actionable intelligence from them that we can then use to inform the investigation? Or in some cases, after the investigation is over, how do we use this information to evaluate the validity of the evidence that we have when somebody's up for trial or has been convicted and is now making claims that they're innocent? What can we do to evaluate that to determine whether there's any validity to that? Are they actually innocent? Do we have an innocent person that's in prison? And then what can we do to get them out?
Yeah. Stephen, as a kid, you play games with your friends and they shove you in a closet, you're hiding in a box. And I would always hate that, being trapped in the box. I would always be afraid of being buried alive, right? Like you watch these horror movies. Well, wrongfully convicted, like that's got to be worse than that. That's got to be worse than that, to be in that situation. Is it that the people aren't trained enough to see if people are lying? Are people just giving inaccurate evidence because they missaw something, they couldn't remember? Is it a combination of all of it? Why and how are these misconvictions happening? And again, you just shared about how you're helping support to make that sure it doesn't happen. But how are they happening?
Yeah, I'll try to give you the Cliff's Note version because I mean, there's a lot here. In fact, I teach an entire course on this, so we could sit here and do an entire quarter of discussion about this. There's a lot of factors, everything that you mentioned there and more, right? There's sometimes it can be where people lie, right? The people fabricate evidence or will make up something to try to get back at somebody else, and that can happen, right? Thankfully, our evidence suggests that's not the most predominant means by what it happens. It's not like intentional efforts, which I say thankfully, but also is problematic, because if it was just intentional efforts of somebody lying and trying to frame somebody, that might be easier to address. What we know is that it's a combination of normal processes that can result in the conviction of an innocent person. That's what makes it challenging, because we have to figure out how do we understand why this is coming about, right? So a very powerful factor, especially in cases that are where people prove their innocence through subsequent DNA testing. We call them DNA exonerations. The most predominant factor in those cases are what we call honest but mistaken eyewitnesses, right? These are people that aren't lying, aren't trying to get back at somebody. They honestly believe that this person is the person that either assaulted them or that they saw commit the offense, but they're just wrong. They're just mistaken on that. And that is the largest factor in these cases that are proven innocent through subsequent post-conviction DNA testing.
Wow. Wow, that is shocking. Stephen and I were chatting off air. I was high school principal for a long time, and it was challenging to figure out who done it. And you're right, the interviewees, many of them just had kind of shady details. They couldn't really
Mhm.
comprehend of what happened. Fascinating work, Stephen. Stephen, let's dial it back. Class of '96. And you went to Port schools your whole life? Is that you grew up in Port Jervis?
Yeah, I attended some private school up until about third grade, I believe it was, and then third grade is
Okay.
when we joined Port schools, and I started attending HBE in third
Okay.
grade.
The place to be.
Yeah, there we go.
Very cool. Tell me about your time in Port. Did you love school? Were you an academic as you are now? Were you an academic in school, in the honors classes and all that kind of stuff? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I was. I had my mom worked in the school district. She was a teacher's aide, and even before we attended Port, she was very big on education and showing up and being engaged. And so, from a very young age, it was about academics and educating yourself. And so, we were encouraged to be in school. For myself, I actually primarily because my mom was so adamant on being present. I never missed a day of school, period. From kindergarten all the way through high school, I never missed a day of school. And that was
Perfect attendance.
perfect attendance the entire time. And a lot of
Wow.
that came from the fact that if my mom had let us know that if we're missing school, that means that we aren't doing anything. Right. So if it wasn't like that option of, okay, I'm not feeling well today, I get to sit down and watch cartoons and eat cereal and instead of going to school, it's like, well, if you're too sick to go to school, you're too sick to do anything. So you're just going to lay in bed all day. And that didn't sound very appealing. So, um, yeah, I was pretty much kind of like the academic going to school the whole time. Right. By the time I got to middle school, there was the opportunity to engage in the honors classes, right, and to do those, and then ultimately through high school, continue to do those. That afforded, by the time you got to senior year, you could then start enrolling in some college courses through, I believe at the time it was through Syracuse University was the way it was set up in Port, right, and so.
Yeah.
That was kind of the pathway that I took through Port as well, was being academic there, but also, the athletic side too. I played football from the time I was 6 or 7, like a lot of kids in Port, right? I mean, that's what you do in Port. You play football, right? And so, I did that, ran track, tried basketball, wasn't very good at it. But, was trying to be as active as I could be going through it, not just sitting there at home reading books, but really trying to be engaged and active and doing a lot of things.
Yeah. So who was your coach football? Coach Corvino? Coach Zamorano?
Coach,
Okay.
Coach Corvino, Coach Samorano was my coach, especially because I was a receiver. So
Nice.
Ronzo was, the receivers coach back then, but Corvino was the coach at the time. In class of '96, his daughter Karen was in that class, and I've been friends with her since we were in elementary school. So we had kind of connection to coach through that as well.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Friends, if you're watching live, jump in the chat. Say hello to Dr. Ross, and he's coming to us live from Seattle, generous enough to allow us some time here. Stephen, at that age, even, and concussions and injuries to the brain were that prominent. You got dinged in the head. They sent you back out there.
Yep.
But did you know at that early age, like, hey man, I got some stuff going on up here. I gotta be careful about this, or was that not even a factor? You just wanted to play football?
Yeah, that really, I think at the time in the '90s, I don't think anybody really, I mean, like you said, you got your bell rung and it was get back out there, right? I mean, there was plenty of times that you had, seeing stars or feeling a little certain way, but it wasn't indicative of anything in Port per se. It was just kind of the culture of football at the time. It was pre us knowing the impacts of these kind of repetitive subconcussive hits, right? And what can happen with that, right? But yeah, no, it was just get out there and toughen up and go do it. It was a different culture back then than it is now. Thankfully, now we know a lot more about that. And even the way that football is trained now compared to back then, right? The coaching, training, and everything else is really about protecting the head and trying to minimize and mitigate potential long-term risk of that type of contact.
100%. We mentioned some legends there, Coach Corvino and Coach Semerano, but you also had many legendary teachers. One, Mr. Birmingham.
Yep.
Did he introduce you to psychology? Was it his college psych course that kind of lit this fire in you to become a psychology expert?
Somewhat, yeah, in kind of a roundabout way, right? So, yeah, when I was a senior, I had him for the college intro to psych class and realized, hey, this stuff is kind of interesting. But at the time, I wasn't even planning on being a psychologist, right? Well, actually, let me say it a different way. I was planning to study psychology, but I was going to college at the time to study marine mammals, right? I had a plan to study how marine mammals communicate. And so I was a double major in marine biology and psychology. And
at Roger Williams?
At Roger Williams, yep.
Wow.
And so I got there, though, and realized, as many people do, that organic chemistry is awful, and nobody wants to take organic chemistry. It is the worst class. And at the same time, I was taking cognitive psychology courses, and so I kind of transitioned a bit, pivoted, still doing psychology, but a lot of the stuff that I had been exposed to in Mr. Birmingham's class in that intro course, kind of, it didn't light the fire, but it started the smoldering, right? Of, wow, there's this other aspect that I hadn't thought about that I was interested in, right? That would be cool to do. And I was still passionate about wanting to do the marine bio stuff. But that kind of led me to realize, no, there's more to this, and there's something else in psych that I might want to pursue. And then ultimately, I got to explore that a lot more when I was in my undergraduate.
Yeah. Wow, Stephen. Beautiful here. Your pathway to where you are doing what you love is great. What are some other things that you remember about your time in Port? Again, 92 to 96 at the high school. What are some things that stand out to you?
Whew, man. Yeah, I mean, like simple things, right? Like pick up basketball at Church Street or at the Christian Center, right? And just going and playing basketball and cramming a bunch of guys into a really, really tiny car to go play ball, right? Like those simple things were kind of the things that you reminisce on and you really appreciate, right? You know, of just, I joke with my kids, maybe joke isn't the right word, but, you know, notice how we were kind of like the last generation, that mid 90s, even the late 90s, I guess, where you weren't all over the internet, right? Like things were a bit simpler, right, back then. And so you could kind of just enjoy being together and connecting with your friends without it being through electronic means and devices, right? And so that's kind of the things you reflect back on and say, you know, that was the enjoyable stuff. I mean, there's other things too, you know, that are positives, right? I mean, I know not quite what happened like with the team this past year, but, you know, going and bringing home, for us, we were one of the first teams in many years to bring home a Section 9 championship in football. Clearly, it doesn't compare to the state championship this past year. But, you know, they're positive things to reflect back on and realize, hey, you had this opportunity to be with friends from grade school up through high school, right? And you know, senior year getting to culminate with doing something like that was, you know, remember pretty fondly.
Yeah. Awesome. Beautiful to hear. And Stephen, we would love for you to come back and see that the facilities have improved and so much growth in the town. And even academically, kids can start taking college classes as young as sophomore year. Mm-hmm. They are paid for now. And there's just a lot more opportunity. So good things are happening. Your oldest daughter, 10th grade, if you looked at the beautiful pictures in the intro, your family there and an 8th grader. Now that your kids are, you know, school age in high school and middle school, is it bringing back memories of things where she comes home, your daughter, and complains about something or says something? Does that bring back some memories of your time?
I don't know if it brings back memories of my time. It sounds a lot like college freshman. Right. So, you know, I hear her saying the same things that I hear from the first year students at UTEP. Right. So that's when I start realizing she's getting old, because she's sounding a lot like the first year students. And I'll be honest, I mean, like the drama and stuff that she deals with, I'm glad that I haven't had to deal with. I didn't deal with that when I was back in Port. Right. You know, it's a different world now. as far as it goes. And out here in Seattle, the school's a lot bigger, right, than it was at Port. I mean, she's got, I think, ballpark, I think she told me somewhere around like 1,600 students in her high school.
Wow, that's big.
It's a really big school, right? And so the experience is a bit different than what it was kind of coming from Port, where I don't know what it is now. My memory is I think we had somewhere around maybe like 250, 300 seniors when we graduated. So
that sounds about right.
It's a smaller size school than what she's dealing with out here.
Mm-hmm. Stephen, you went to Roger Williams, you went to Ball State in Muncie, and then UTEP, University of Texas El Paso, got a doctorate in legal psychology. Were you ready when you went to Roger Williams? Did you get there and was it a tidal wave of, oh my God, this is really difficult? Or did you feel prepared as you left Port? I mean, you were obviously really bright in the top of your class, honors classes. But when you got there, were you ready or were you overwhelmed?
I think this is one of those things that where I'm a good example of how you can mess up but still persevere, right? So when I went to Roger Williams, I was prepared academically. I wasn't prepared to be an adult, right? And so the reality is, after my first year at Roger Williams, I had a full ride at Roger Williams, like a full academic scholarship. That's part of the reason why I went there, was because it was a full academic scholarship. I lost that after my first year, right? I lost it because I got there and the freedom, the independence, and it wasn't like I was out doing the crazy partying type stuff. It was just, I didn't have to, I had more freedom and independence to just go do what I wanted to do. And if I didn't feel like going to a class, I didn't go to a class. And so and also at the time there was courses taken that I wasn't really super excited about, hence my change from marine bio to just focusing on what I focus on. But I'm kind of a good case example of, well, you can mess up. And then it took me after that first year realizing, wow, I really dropped the ball here. That's when, there's kind of the kick in the pants, like realizing if I want to keep doing this, I need to try to turn it around. And from that point forward, I put my abilities to action, right? Like I had the ability to succeed and there was no problem with doing it. I just wasn't doing it my first year. And so I did succeed afterwards, but even after I left Roger Williams, I took some time off. I wasn't ready to pursue what I wanted to pursue. And I moved back to New York. I got married. I sold cars for 2 years in New York, over there at Middletown Honda. And then it wasn't until 9/11 when I finally had like the other kick in the pants of, I don't want to sell cars, right? I want to pursue what I wanted to pursue. And it was after that of realizing that there's a lot more that I need to do, and life is short and unpredictable. That's when I made the decision to go back to grad school and pursue what I'm doing right now. But I was not, I wasn't the best. I was in the best place leaving high school to be an adult, and I had to learn it the hard way. And financially, right? I had a full ride. I lost that. Wow. That's an expensive private school that I had to pay for then afterwards, right? And it was definitely a kick in the pants there.
Wow, that is a fascinating story, Stephen, and thank you for sharing that. Do you tell your students at the University of Washington now some of those, things like, hey, you better make sure you're in class, that kind of stuff, or is it you're focusing on the psychology?
Yes. I encourage them to be present and engaged, right? That's the big thing there is engagement and presence goes a really long way. And it's not about your ability, it's about your effort. And so I really encourage that. But I view it more as for the students that have stumbled or have challenges that are making it just difficult to be present and engaged, right? We have a lot of students at our university that have a lot of responsibilities outside of the classroom, right? They have to work full time because they're providing for family members, right? Or they're what we call like the non-traditional students, where they're coming back after many years away to further their education. And maybe those challenges are preventing them from having the 4.0 grade, right? From being at the top of the class, but they still want to go and pursue graduate training. And so I view my experience more as the exemplar of you can stumble and still persevere. You can stumble and still go and achieve your goals. It might be a different pathway. You might have to go a little bit more circuitous, hence why I did one graduate program in Indiana and then went to another graduate program in Texas. I couldn't directly go to the doctorate. I had to work my way through master's training first. But you can get there, right? Yeah. And so that to me is the more impactful lesson I think you can take from my mistakes, is not that you need to keep your butt in the classroom. It's more about hey, if you stumble, that's not the end of it. You still can achieve, you can still go forward, you can still pursue your goals. Don't give up on them.
And you've landed in the job that you, like you said, that you love, brought you all the way to the Pacific Northwest, Seattle, at a major university. Stephen, really cool. You are teaching there. You are a professor. You are doing consulting work as an expert in psychology, and you're also involved, a lot of research, which I guess helps you in both of those roles as a consultant expert and as a professor. Talk to me a little bit about the research there. Are you reviewing films? Are they bringing you into behind the mirror and you watching stuff? What does that research look like?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a lot of different methodologies that we use, and some we would say are kind of what we call like more field studies or applied studies. Others are laboratory-based research. And so some of my research is, we call it kind of basic laboratory research, where we'll bring participants into a laboratory setting and we'll have them engage in a variety of like memory tests, right? So sometimes it'll be that we expose them to stimuli or videos, and then we figure out different ways to test their memory to see how accurate are they and what can we do. So some of it's kind of, I'm going to use the word boring, but not boring to me, but outsiders looking at it might not find it as flashy or exciting, right? Mm-hmm. Other times we'll do kind of some field work where it'll be more naturalistic, right? Where we'll go out into a public setting and have some interaction take place, right? And then interview people afterwards to see how does that work. For an example of this, for my my master's thesis, one of the things that we did was have somebody intervene or interrupt, I guess I should say, a lecture on campus. And students were there thinking that they were just participating in a lecture, and then somebody came in and got into an argument with the instructor of that lecture, and then we had to go through and test their memory. Then we made them believe they thought it was a full-fledged criminal investigation. We had individuals, like we had police officers there doing the interviewing and the identification procedures and all that, and so it's very much a naturalistic setting as far as it goes. And then still some other research is archival, where we actually look at the data that's collected by law enforcement, and we go through and analyze that data and look through it there. And so there's a variety of ways in which we do it, from the basic laboratory stuff to more of these field studies to archival studies, where we're getting data from law enforcement. They're sending, collecting recordings of interviews they've done, and now we're looking to see how do we evaluate those interviews to see what worked and what didn't work and things like that.
Yeah. Wow. It is truly fascinating. Stephen, I was shocked by some of these numbers you shared. An estimated 1,000 wrongful convictions annually in Washington State.
Yeah.
I mean, that's shocking.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it happens pretty widely. That's just in Washington State. We're well in the thousands if we look at across the United States, right?
Almost 3,700 per year.
Yeah. There's a lot per year throughout the U.S. And those are estimates, because we don't know all of them. So relying on the best numbers from people who are well more versed and much smarter than I, coming up with estimates as far as that goes.
Yeah. And your research and your work I mean, you're not the lawyer in the courtroom, but your research and your work here has helped exonerate people, including people that were in prison for almost 16 years. That's got to be rewarding for you to have your work fix a wrong and set somebody free.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be lying if you said it wasn't, right?
Yeah.
But it's bittersweet in a lot of ways, right? Like you feel good about that, but then it's also disappointing that you had to go through that to get them relief. And then for all of those cases where, I kind of shared with you, hey, this was one that resulted in a vacated conviction. There's others where we have guys still sitting in prison, right? There's one guy out here in Washington right now where, and perhaps the most disappointing part of this is I co-chaired a state legislative work group that rewrote the statewide policy for how to collect eyewitness evidence. And that work group consisted of academics, it consisted of police administrators, it consisted of detectives and patrol officers and legislators. It was a wide representation, had prosecutors, defense attorneys, everybody on this work group. And one of the prosecutors on this work group that helped us shape this is the prosecutor in a county right now where somebody has pretty demonstrable evidence that the eyewitness ID was wrong, and that they're innocent, including DNA evidence that exonerates them. And these are the ones that are more bitter because I worked with this prosecutor. I thought we were all on the same page. He helped write the statewide policy, but yet in this one case, the guy's still languishing in prison, even though the eyewitness evidence is really questionable. And there's DNA evidence that does not link that. Basically, the DNA evidence that was present at the scene does not belong to him. Right. And so it's disappointing. That's why I say, like, it's really in these situations in which for guys like Brandon Olibar, in which we're able to convince the prosecutor to drop the charges, it's really beneficial to get him freed from prison. But then we have other guys who are still languishing. It's hard to be high for so long, right? When you sit there and you look at others that are still sitting there behind bars with no apparent recourse, even though the DNA says it's not them.
Yeah. There's more work to be done.
Without a doubt. I'm in one of those fields in where I'm constantly trying to put myself out of business, but I'm pretty confident that I will not be able to.
And again, it's not like you could, I mean, I guess you could just do one, but I love the fact that you have such variety in your work, that you're teaching, you're researching, and then you're physically consulting, working with these people. You're really hands-on in the work.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of being a professor, right? You want to be a professor, you got to do research, you got to teach. And I'm fortunate where I am that they value the applied work, the work that I do in the field as well.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, part of being a professor, you got to do the research and you got to teach, right? You can't get out of that.
Like Indiana Jones. I mean, he's not just in there talking about the archaeology; he's out there doing it.
Yeah, kind of similar to that. Although I will not compare myself to Harrison Ford.
Maybe more Zach Brown. I don't know if you get the Zach Brown.
I have not had the Zach Brown reference before. I know who you're referring to. I haven't had that one. Haven't had that one yet.
Get your little hat there, Stephen. You're a long way from home. Have you fallen in love with the Pacific Northwest? I mean, you're there 16 years. And again, the pictures you sent, absolutely gorgeous. You go to the athletic events, you're outside a lot. Have you fallen in love with the area?
Yeah, I mean, the Pacific Northwest is really a special place, right? I mean, you hear about Seattle and, the stereotype of Seattle is it rains all the time. And you're right. From about like October through May, it's not a sunny place at all, right? But we're fortunate enough to have the mountains right here. So, less than an hour from home, we can go skiing, right? And so even though it's raining here in Seattle, we got snow all around us in the mountains. And so we can benefit from that. But once you get to the summertime, right? Once you get to like mid-June, all the way through September, like we just got rain the other day for the first time in a long time, right? It's sunny, it's beautiful. We're so far north, the sun is up late into the evening, and so the outdoor activities are just amazing. And so you got the mountains, you got the water, right? You have everything right here that you can just go hike, mountain bike, camp, ski, whatever you want to do. It's all here within less than an hour's driving distance from Seattle. So it's really a nice place to be. Definitely have enjoyed being here, being much more active. In fact, we're leaving this afternoon to go out and go camping this weekend, right? And just go and enjoy and being out in nature. So it's a beautiful place. And the mountains are a bit different than those around Port as far as that goes. A little bit steeper. The skiing out here is a whole lot better than anything you're going to get back there in the Northeast. If you like steeps, you come out here for them. Not the
Monticello.
Whatever. I kept trying to remember what that Holiday Mountain is. That
Holiday Mountain.
Holiday Mountain up there in Monticello. Yeah, so it's a little bit steeper than that. Yeah.
Well, the pictures again. We're gonna do the outro there at the end. The pictures you sent, absolutely gorgeous there, and man, this is really interesting work, Stephen, and kudos to you for chasing your dream. Kudos to you for sharing the curveball that happened at Roger Williams, and here you are where you wanted to be. Stephen, anything else you wanted to share that the Port Jervis community's watching? I reached out to the psychology teacher here, said, hey, man, you definitely got to connect with Dr. Ross. Anything else you want to share to our students and community here in Port?
No, I mean, I think I guess for Port more broadly speaking, right? I mean, I had a chance. I haven't gotten back a lot. Living out on the West Coast, it's kind of hard to get back all the way to the East Coast. But
Sure.
We did get back last summer, right? We got back for a little bit last summer, and I mean, Port for itself, I think the thing that I've always thought of when I kind of think back to Port more broadly is kind of like that idea of like perseverance is always there, right? I mean, the things that are happening in Port, the revitalization of downtown, new restaurants coming in constantly, it seems like, right? New things developing. Last year, I can't remember the name of it, but when we were back last year, there was a new like speakeasy place that had opened in the old bank there, right? That was on, I think, kind of like Fowler and Jersey Avenue or somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So it's just the thing here of like, it's one thing I take from Port is perseverance is there, right? Like there's a lot of challenges that people experience there, but the community just continues to persevere, continues to grow, right? And just won't quit, won't give up, right? And so that's kind of the nice thing about that. And then as far as students go, I think the big thing that I say to my students, I say to my athletes that I coach too, but the perseverance I think is the big thing here, and that it's not about where you start, it's about what you put into it, right? And Port personifies that too, right? It doesn't have to be about what you have, it's the effort or work that you're going to put into it. And I always say to my athletes, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, right? And if you put in the effort, you can be successful. And just because you've experienced challenges in your life, I grew up with some challenges. We all have various personal challenges that we've dealt with here. But you can succeed. You can persevere, right? Just show up, engage, be present, and put in the work. And you're going to find that just because others might have some privileges that you don't have doesn't mean that they're always going to have more success than you, that you can persevere, you can overcome, you can get what they're trying to get by outworking and out hustling. And if you just keep your eye on the prize, you're going to get there.
Well said, Dr. Ross. How about a message for our psychology students, kids that are thinking about going into the field, and what would you say to those students?
I think a big thing here is psychology is a lot more than, we tend to think of clinical psychology and mental health, right? When we think of psychology, and there's a lot more to psychology and a lot more that you can do with it. And so go explore. You're going to find that there's some aspect of psychology that speaks to every single experience that you have in life. And so go explore it, have fun with it. Take the opportunities there in high school to take the intro class if you have that available to you. And then realize that you can do almost anything with that, right? It's about understanding people and how we behave and understanding how we think and how our emotions affect us. And that can inform you in anywhere you want to go.
Dr. Ross, everyone coming to us from Seattle, appreciate the time. Your work is fascinating. And kudos again, Stephen. You're doing the teaching, you're doing the research, as well as the consulting work on real live cases, supporting law enforcement, supporting people wrongfully convicted. So very cool. Stephen, we're going to end here. Port Pride is booming here. I do got to give a shout out to your sister, Linda List, nurse here at East Maine. Long time she's been here. Yep. And your brother Dave just joined the team. He's one of our police officers here, retired NYPD. He does a great job up there at your alma mater, HBE.
Yep, there he is.
Yeah, so give them a shout out. But what does Port Pride mean to you, Stephen?
Ooh, well, yeah, I mean, I think part of it, what I alluded to earlier, right? Like Port to me is about overcoming. Right, about sitting there and realizing that, hey, you might not have all the privileges that others have, but we're still going to persevere. We're still going to overcome. We're still going to, get out there and work. Right, and that's what I think of when I think of Port, is kind of the blue collar town, right? That's going to get there, and we're gonna put in the effort, and we're gonna get what we can get to better ourselves. And so that's kind of what Port Pride means to me, collectively speaking, right? As far as that goes.
Dr. Ross, everybody. Stephen, have a great weekend. My best to your family, and we appreciate you coming on. Friends here in Port Jervis, have a wonderful weekend as well, and we'll be back to it next week. Stephen, can you give us a go Port as we end the show?
There we go. Go Port.
Bam. Stay on the line a second, Stephen. Have a great weekend, everybody.